Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Lauren Deal, and I'm so excited to welcome Deidre Melton, who is the Associate Vice President of Audit and Chief Risk Officer at FAMU. How are you today, Deidre?
I'm doing fantastic, Lauren.
We're so happy to have you here today. Now, Deidre, you have a very impressive resume. I'm just going to put it out there. You have 9 certifications in the audit and IT field. But before we even get there, I just wanted to tease you at home a little bit. Deidre, talk to us about how you got started in the auditing field.
Well, I'll tell you, I went to school for business. My dream was to be the next Wall Street guru. So my concentration, my MBA is in finance, and I did an internship, a year-long internship in Manhattan, working for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, really overseeing their Zyrtec budget. It was like a $90 million budget. And while I was there, I also was helping with their build out of a new financial system, just doing like business analysts, which is really just telling them from a user standpoint, some of those different controls that they need to consider, things like that. But what I learned while living in Manhattan for that year was that I just don't like the cold or snow. So I'm from Florida and I like sunshine and heat. And so I knew I would never make it on Wall Street because I refused to live in New York.
You and me both.
So so fast forward, I'm now trying to wrap up school and I'm getting all these offers and I'm turning them down. I'm like, does it snow there? Nope, can't come. Does it snow there? Nope, can't come. And so my parents are getting more and more upset. And I was like, I finally found something. It was an offer for an audit position, an IT auditor position. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Um, Never heard of it, an IT auditor. Until that day I was at the career fair and they were like, really, are you interested in trying it out? You did the business analyst with the build out with Pfizer. I was like, I'll give it a shot. Is it somewhere warm? And that's what sold me. That's how I got started in the audit field because they offered me a position where it did not snow.
I love that answer. And I feel like you and I have that very much in common. I am in Florida as well, escaping the cold. But I'm curious because, so many times as women, we see a job application or a job posting and we go down through every single bullet point to make sure that we are a perfect alignment with that job. And if we don't hit every single bullet, we tend to not apply. But I love that you were like, let me give it a shot, and you jumped in full force. And then what was your first auditing position?
It was doing IT audits for the state of Florida, and that's auditing higher education, really all levels of education from school boards all the way up through universities, as well as state and local governments. So one of the more exciting local government ones was I got to audit the voting system here in Florida. And no matter where you live in the US, you've heard about Florida's voting. And so that was an interesting particular audit that I got started in. But you mentioned one thing to me was about really not allowing and women wanting to check every box and before applying. And I will say from my experience, that was one of the things that I often coach women on, and especially all of my mentees, is not to worry about checking every box. If you talk to your male counterparts, if they can check 3 of the 10 boxes, they're going to apply. It's all about getting and being able to sell yourself in the interview and be confident in your skill. There's always going to be a learning curve in any job that you apply for. So if you're waiting to check every box, you're holding yourself back.
Ooh, I love that. Because how many times have we waited for the perfect opportunity that we check all the boxes? And I think, depending on where you apply, there will be training and there will be a learning curve, like you mentioned. And so believing in yourself that and being confident that you can do the job regardless of whether you check every single box. Now, as a woman in the auditing field, this is kind of a new venture, if you will, especially in some specific categories of auditing. If you were to kind of think about challenges that arise when it comes to women in the auditing field, what comes to mind?
I think for women in the auditing field, it's the challenge they have is around the soft skills and being confident, because in auditing, to be successful, you not just have to sell yourself, you have to sell your product, which is your audits, things that you're doing. And in order to be able to do that, you have to think outside the box. You have to be willing to talk to all levels of the organization and really figure out how to communicate at those different levels. And that's one of the most challenging things that I find when talking to other women, is that they're not confident. They're not sure how to have their voices heard in the room without having like a male counterpart kind of stick up for them or to confirm what they say. And what I've learned over the years is it's the confidence that gets you 90% of the way. So whether or not you feel like you know something totally or you're going in, by just speaking with confidence on the topic, you make people listen, because it then puts them on notice to really have to challenge. It's when you're hesitant in how you speak and how you communicate that leaves the door open. So I always go in with the mentality that no matter what subject, whether this is just something that I'm just now learning or getting abreast in, I go in with the mentality that I am the queen of that topic, and you're gonna have to dethrone me on that. So
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's a new persona unlocked that I'm going to have to check out. But there's constantly in the auditing field topics that are rolling out or new things to, like you said, stay up to date with. How do you stay on top of all the essential skills that you need in order to do your job proficiently?
so for me, because I really concentrate in tech, and tech is a field that is constantly evolving and changing. And now I'm doing ERM as well, which is enterprise risk management. They both are constantly evolving. So for me, it's always about learning. And so I do that in a variety of ways. I make sure that I'm following some of those top key people of different organizations that specialize in topics that are forward thinking on like LinkedIn and the different social media sites, so I can see those changes. I'm following and staying abreast of different legislation that's coming down the pipeline, and I'm participating in networking at conferences and webinars. And now that it's virtual, you have a lot more opportunities to discuss and talk to people, making sure that you're using your Google notifications to track certain trigger words so that they're sending you updates on those topics is really helpful to have that knowledge going in. And for those specific skills, you're really looking at the changes in the industry that's around you. So I look first at what's changing, because I work in higher ed. So I look what's changing in higher education. And then I broaden out what are those top think tanks talking about that's moving that can impact everything else, because it's a trickle down effect, especially for higher ed, because we have to educate those people that go into all of those other areas. And so I look at what are those skill sets. And a lot of times, honestly, to be successful, it goes back to some of those essential skills, right? Your ability to strategize, to be strategic and think outside the box when it comes to new issues. It talks about things like your ability to read understand and then communicate it out in a way that makes sense. So I read a lot of technical stuff. I deal in a lot of technical, but I speak to a lot of people that do not understand that technical. So being able to break it down. So thinking for me, I have kids. I have a 5 and a 10-year-old. So a lot of times I'm thinking, how would I explain this highly technical thing to my 10-year-old who's in middle school? She was in, and then before when she was in elementary, how would I explain it to that? And I honestly treat my board and my senior leadership team like they're kids, right? Because they don't know a lot of times what you're talking about. So that is a skill. You have to learn how to break things down. And then negotiation, because for me, everything in life is just about negotiation. I don't consider anything a really a hard no. It's what do I have to do to get you to say yes and to understand that. So, really honing, especially for women, your negotiation skills, your emotional intelligence, your ability to read the room, and then for audit, it's being creative and forward thinking, seeing what's the trends, capitalizing on the different technology. So a lot of people thought like agile auditing was like a fad, but I looked at implementing it here and we've been implementing it and actually been speaking on it quite a bit to other organizations. But it's really all about a different way of communicating and breaking down your audits so that they're clear. And so taking the new skills and technology and figuring out how to implement it. So even with data analytics, which we all know you have to have some kind of awareness and skill sets in because everything is going to technology, you really want to think, what are those skill sets? What does it look like for my organization and for me specifically? How hands on am I specifically going to get into data analytics, or do I need to understand the concepts? And that's what a lot of people need to understand when it comes to audit. You need to be able to identify for the different levels what of the new technologies or skills that they're granting that you actually have to be proficient at, or you just need to have some awareness or knowledge. And so I feel like for me, I kind of take that balance, right? Things that I really, really need to know, you'll see me spend quite a significant time. I may pick up a certification and it just to feel confident that I know that particular area. But other things, I just need to have an understanding of how it impacts either my specific shop, the people that I manage, or how I can use that skill to the advantage of my people as we're going about our day to day. So I think having that awareness to understand so that you're not thinking you have to know everything or be an expert at everything.
I think that says everything right there is going in with confidence. I think as women, communication skills are so crucial to, and I love that you made the comparison to your children because a lot of times when you're interacting with someone, you don't want to assume that they know what you're talking about. So it's easier to meet them where they're at and then build upon that. I love that strategy. Now, this is the time of the show where I kind of boast about you a little bit. You have 9 certifications throughout audit and IT. And so you truly are always a seeker of knowledge in so many different areas to keep you up to date with everything that's going on in the industry. In fact, there's some new things that are going on with the IA standards. Is that correct?
Correct. So for a while, we've all been used to the Institute of Internal Auditors professional standards. Right now, they're doing a big overhaul of those standards to switch it to a principle base and not to have everything segmented from the code of ethics to your regular standards to the implementation guidance. And so you see a lot of changes. We're actually in the comment period. So if there's one thing that I would suggest for all auditors to do is to go out and look at those changes that they're planning on making to our standards. Because right now you have an opportunity to provide feedback where you may see some issues, but also it gives you, I don't foresee there being any major changes to what they're putting forth. There may be some tweaks here and there, but for the most part, you're going to see a lot of that, what they have. So I suggest go ahead and being ready, looking at what they're saying that you have to do and seeing where you need to close some gaps because there are some very specific things that they're putting in place that says, hey, this is what it looks like to conform with the standards now. This is what your shop has to do. This is what your people have to be able to do. And so you'll see some tweaks that's going to have to happen for your shop. And as an auditor, especially if you want to be a leader in the audit field, you're going to want to know how to um, really apply these standards, how to get out in front of them, and then how to communicate them, not just internally to audit, but how do you communicate to the leaders within your organization how you're changing and why you're changing the way that you audit are the things that you're doing, those expectations that the IAA is setting forth.
Yes. And having them understand that these are not changes just for the sake of changes. These are changes to make our organization better. And here's why. And here's how it will impact your organization specifically. And I love that you're staying up to date with everything that's changing. You found a lot of mentors on social platforms such as LinkedIn, and you are a mentor yourself. And I just want to take a second to celebrate that you just spoke at a Women in Leadership conference. In fact, you were on the panel for inspiring careers in cyber and tech. But beyond that, what advice would you give to women who are thinking about stepping into this path and following in your footsteps?
I would say one of the questions that we were asked as a panelist at that conference was, what would I tell my younger self? Right. And I think for me, I learned this later in my career, and it is and I made that queen reference earlier, but I look at life, especially your career as a chessboard, right? You have to, I would tell my younger self that, hey, you have to decide not to allow yourself to be the pawn on the board. You're a queen, which is the most powerful piece in chess. You're a queen, own it. Make that board work for you. Make everyone else your pawns. And you do that through your networking, right? You do that through educating yourself. You do that by being confident in your abilities. Are you going to make mistakes? Of course, everybody makes mistakes, but take the time to learn from those mistakes. Don't let them cripple you or keep you from achieving things. I make mistakes and I learn from them. I overcome them even at this point in my career. But when I walk out of the room, when I walk in the room, always think, if you don't think of yourself as a queen, then you're someone's pawn. And I will always be a queen in my life.
Ooh, all right. I'm putting that on a t-shirt, and I also will put my crown on right now. And I hope you at home are doing the same thing. I love it. All right, Deidre, before we wrap up our show today, I just want to talk about some celebrations and some milestones that you might want to share with our audience. So what's going on in your life, and what can we talk about what's going on in your future?
So right now, I am like in a kind of a reorg stage. So I took on enterprise risk management about a year ago. When we talk about going out on a limb, I never built an enterprise risk management program from scratch. I've been in audit the whole time. Yes, I understood enterprise risk management, could advise on different things, but to lead the build out of an enterprise risk management program for a whole institution, that's a new one. But it's that confidence. I could learn, I can grow, and I could take advantage of the network that I built over the years to make sure I was successful. So I leaped out on it. And so I'm looking forward to all the new things that we have planned to roll out here in enterprise risk management. I'm also looking forward to some of the upcoming conferences that I'll be attending with the Association of College and University Auditors, as well as some of my IT conferences with ASACA. So I'm looking forward to them because I always enjoy interacting with people and learning and growing. And then I think the other things that I'm looking forward to is some of the activities we're doing with just raising awareness, not only within FAMU on certain topics like fraud, internal controls, and risk management, but a new opportunity of working with Cyber Florida to kind of shape and lead how cybersecurity is handled throughout the state of Florida and what that looks like. So I'm looking forward to getting involved with them.
It sounds like you have a lot on your plate and a lot on your horizon, which is exciting to watch. And if everyone wanted to connect with you after this show, how would they reach you and how can they stay up to date as to what you're up to?
So the best way to connect with me and to stay up to date with what I'm doing, or if you just have a question you want to ask, is to connect with me on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I'm always on it. So that's the best way to connect and stay up to date with what I have going on, or to get your questions answered.
Well, thank you so much, Deidre, for joining us on this episode and celebrating women in the field of audit. And any final words before we end our show?
I say my final words to everyone is just believe in yourselves. Really take the moment to understand that life has its ups and downs, and you just have to keep striving, dusting yourself off, and getting back up, having your own vision to what you want to achieve in life and working towards it. Because getting there is mainly just believing in yourself.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Make sure you put your crown back on and believe in yourself. Deidre, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching.